Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a wonderful episode of the Duck Zone. This is our college basketball preview show. College basketball is here. Starts on Monday. I can't believe it came so quick. A lot to cover in a short amount of time, so we're just going to jump right into it. James, how excited are you for this 24-25 college basketball season?
I'm pretty excited. We have a lot of big time freshmen, one notably that we'll definitely talk about that looks to be pretty good. And I'm excited for my Arizona Wildcats too. But per usual, the excitement's always at the beginning and I always get let down at the end, so maybe this year will be different.
As James just said, a lot to talk about. New freshman, Cooper Flag, basically the high ship one on this one. And probably the most exciting player that we've seen in college basketball since Zion Williamson a few years back. To give you a little bit of a recap, UConn won last year. They've won back-to-back titles. They beat Purdue. North Carolina State and Alabama were also in the Final Four. So it'll be interesting to see how those four teams bounce back into it and see where they go, as they have lost quite a few guys to the NBA. But this first month, this November month for college basketball is always a great treat for everyone. A lot of high talented matchups right off of the slate. And we're going to start, we're going to talk about a couple of these great matchups here in the first month. Also some great tournaments that happen around Thanksgiving to start the season. So right first night, Monday night, we got number 8 heading to Gonzaga. This is the best game of opening night. James, what do you think?
Yeah, this should be a fun top 10 showdown. It's always hard to determine what to look for in these games just because it's so early on. These teams aren't gelling yet. There's a lot of new players, not only freshmen, but like we've always talked about previously in college football, this whole new NIL era is upon us. So you got guys jumping around left and right. But one notable guy I want to take out of this game is Gonzaga guard Ryan Nemhard. If you're not familiar with college basketball, and maybe you're more of an NBA fan, his brother plays for the Pacers, Andrew Nemhard. But Ryan Nemhard, he transferred from Creighton. He's kind of the engine to this Gonzaga team. He's the point guard, and I think this Gonzaga team is going to go as far as Ryan Nemhard goes. So he's kind of my player to watch from this game.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the Nemhart family has been running at Gonzaga for, it feels like forever. Um, Game on Friday, November 8th, number 9, North Carolina, heading to number 1, Kansas. Who are you spotlighting in this one?
So my spotlight for this game is Hunter Dickinson. He came back. He feels like he's someone who's been in college forever. He was at Michigan for a couple of years, and he transfers to Kansas. He's one of those guys who obviously is making it. I think he was a number 1 NIL player in terms of revenue from last year's college basketball season. So he's making more money coming back to college than going to even play in the G League. Because I don't know if he's an NBA player. I look at someone like Zach Edey who's struggled out of the gates, and Dickinson is kind of in that same tier. So I'm curious what he'll be at the next level. But anyways, I digress. Dickinson's my player to watch. He is the main man down low for Kansas, and again, not to use the same phrase I used for Gonzaga, but if Dickinson's not on the court, this Kansas team is way smaller and way different. He is super good offensively. His defense is questionable at times, but as we saw last year when Dickinson was hurt or didn't play, this Kansas team just was not the same. So Dickinson, I think, is my guy to watch in that UNC Kansas game.
Okay, not the last time we'll bring up Kansas in this video for sure. Then the very next day, first Saturday of the college basketball season, number 11 heading to Houston, who is preseason ranked number 4.
So my player in this game to watch is, where do I have that? LJ Cryer. He's returning for Houston. Jamal Shed was kind of their big time point guard last year. He had all the headlines. Cryer's really good, and he, I believe, is their leading scorer in terms of returning players. So, uh, Cryer gets to kind of take hold of this Houston offense and really prove that he can do it on his own. I mean, he has a ton of other players to help him, but he's kind of the guy now.
Okay. We're going to fast forward a couple weeks to November 22nd. I know you're going to be keeping eyes all on this one, and who knows, maybe you'll come back to Arizona for this. Number 7, Duke, heading down to Tucson to play number 10, Arizona.
Yeah, so my player to watch for this game is Jaden Bradley. Uh, he he's taking over the keys for Tommy Lloyd's offense. I'm blanking on the point guard we had last year. I don't know why I can't think of his name. He transferred to Illinois. He was under a lot of criticism last year, and Jaden Bradley was really good for the Wildcats. So it'll be fun to see Jaden Bradley with a full set of minutes, starter minutes, I should say, and just this program used to be dubbed Point Guard U. So let's bring the point guard back to the university and see what Jaden Bradley can do.
Next one we're going to talk about is the 25th of November, which I believe is going to be a Monday. That will be a Monday, yes, the 25th of November. And this is actually a first-round matchup of the Maui Invitational, which we'll talk a little bit more about here shortly. But this is a great first-round matchup over in Hawaii. Number 11, Auburn, taking on number 5, Iowa State.
So my player to watch in this game is Johnny Broome. He's returning for Auburn, and he is their big man down low, 6'10" forward, and he is solid offensively and defensively. From what I've been reading about, and from what I remember from last year, Auburn's offense isn't great. They were a gritty team, and they beat you on the defensive end. So they're going to need guys like Johnny Broome to bring the scoring.
So next matchup, going to be in Vegas. It's a one-off, not part of a tournament. But this could be a Final Four preview, in my opinion. Number 7, Duke, taking on number 1, Kansas. A lot of talent on the court in this one in Vegas. I'm sure a ton of NBA scouts will be there for this one, too.
So I already brought up Hunter Dickinson, but I'm going to bring up Cooper Flagg again. I know you've already mentioned him, but this kid looks insanely talented. He was doing it against NBA players as a part of the practice squad to get ready for Team USA for the Olympics, and he was not dominating them, but there was a lot of NBA players who came out and was like, "Oh my God, this kid, he's got it." And he wasn't getting pushed around. He himself was scoring on these superstars and holding his own. So if that's something we can look at, and if he can stem from that, this Duke team might be like totally back, and Cooper Flagg might be a shoo-in for not only the number 1 pick, but for Player of the Year.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see Flagg play. A lot of hype around this guy. As I said, Zion Williamson's probably the last one that's had this much hype before playing a game. It'll be interesting to see what he can do. Last game that we're gonna talk about here, as this great November of college basketball starts. This is part of the Impact tournament in Vegas that starts on the 26th, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Houston, number 4, taking on number 2, Alabama. What a way to start a tournament!
Yeah, and my player to watch from this game, Mark Sears gets all the attention for Alabama, but I want to see what Grant Nelson can do. He was a transfer from North Dakota State last year, and he had kind of an up and down season, but he really, really broke out in that Sweet 16. So he's a stretch 4. He spaces the floor really well. When he's hot, he's a knockdown shooter. So I want to see, can he continue playing like he did from that Sweet 16? He's got another year under Nate Oates' as offense. So I'm really excited to see what Grant Nelson can do in his second year at Alabama.
And then part of a lot of these games, as I've kind of mentioned, they're part of bigger tournaments that are happening in November. James, I know you have one that you want to address. I'm going to address 2 We'll do a sandwich. I'll do one, you do one. I'll finish with one. So one of the ones I want to address right off the top, which is always a great watch, is the Maui Invitational. Starts the Monday before Thanksgiving, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Great teams in it again this year. 3 seed UConn, 11 seed Auburn, 5 seed Iowa State, 9 seed UNC. Also, you have a Michigan State team that very well could be ranked at the time of that tournament. It's always a great watch, and you're going to see a lot of at this pace, a lot of top 10 matchups. Always one of my favorite tournaments to watch early in the season. James, I know you have a tournament you want to talk about.
Yeah, yeah. The Maui's always so much fun, and the times are always fun because Hawaii is 3, 4, 5, even 6 hours behind the East Coast. So you're watching some of these. I mean, for some of you on the East Coast, it's probably morning games, but or excuse me, the game. Well, whatever. You get my
Yeah,
you
late.
get my
Yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah.
Anyways, the tournament I wanna highlight is the Battle for Atlantis. I think the storylines coming out of this could be really fun. I know I'm an Arizona fan, and Arizona's in this tournament, but as you and I have talked about before this show, they have a pretty semi easy road to the championship. And if they are to play Indiana or Gonzaga, the storylines write themselves. You have Arizona, Gonzaga. Those are the two powerhouses on the West Coast. But whenever Arizona and Gonzaga play, it's normally a pretty fun and entertaining game. Now, if Indiana makes it and beats Gonzaga and it's Arizona, Indiana, again, two storied programs. But what's fun about that game is that Arizona's starting center from last year, Umar Ballo, took a bag, like $1 million deal, goes to Indiana. So there you go. There's another storyline. Former Arizona big man taking on the Wildcats. So Indiana also is a team I think is going to be back. It's been quite a while since a lot of these younger kids. When they hear about Indiana, they probably think of the movie Hoosiers as an older movie. But really, even in our lifetime, Sean, Indiana hasn't been dominant. I mean, their dominance dates back to like the '80s and before. So it'd be nice to see Indiana back in the mix of things. And I'll
Yeah,
kick it back to you for that other tournament after you
yeah.
have
They
something to
have, they
say.
have some Indiana has some weird flashes, some weird years, but it'd be nice to see some consistency out of that school. The other thing I love about the Battle for Atlantis is the fact that it's played in the ballroom. Just very unique style. And I feel
Yeah.
like it's one of those tournaments because it's in a ballroom that if you win, it's almost a win-win. If you win the tournament, it's only going to help your resume. But if you lose a game, you kind of get to use the excuse that it's like this is not really basketball. We're playing in a ballroom with weird lighting, and you kind of have a nice built-in out excuse early in the season of like, if it was a loss, but it shouldn't really hurt us. And we've kind of seen that historically. The losses in Atlantis don't necessarily hurt teams when it comes to the selection committee down the line, which is a great consider. It's a win-win in my opinion. The other tournament I kind of want to address really quick, Impact Tournament, which is happening at the same time, starts the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Just a lot of really good teams in this that are going to be interesting to watch. Creighton, 15, number 13, Texas A&M, number 4, Houston, 2, Alabama, 25, Rutgers, an Oregon team that was good last year that's returning a lot of guys. So that's going to be a fun watch in Vegas as well. That time of the year, that week before Thanksgiving and of Thanksgiving, just great college basketball, great sports all around. Actually, good time to be in front of a television. That said, we're gonna look bigger picture now, and we're gonna select our conference champions. We're gonna make some predictions, and I know James, you're gonna spotlight a player. I'm just gonna go with a team. So we're gonna start with the ACC. I'm picking Duke to win the ACC. James, who do you got?
I also have Duke. I think John Shire, this is a big moment for him to prove that, he is the right guy post Mike Krzyzewski. And he obviously was able to secure a player like Cooper Flagg, who, like you've mentioned, probably the biggest name we've seen since Zion. So if he can't get it done with a player like Cooper Flagg, he even has guys like Proctor returning, who's a really good player. Um, I don't know. It might be interesting to hear what Duke fans have to say if they cannot win the ACC with Cooper Flag. But
Yeah.
I have Duke, and you mentioned that I was going to mention a player, I'll probably just mention a player from the team I'm picking. But
Okay. Yeah.
how can you not pick Cooper Flag?
Yeah.
So
That's probably the easiest conference, honestly. I mean, it's hard not to pick them with all the hype around them. We're gonna jump over to the Big Ten. Interesting situation. College football Big Ten. We've seen all this excitement. Oregon coming over, UCLA, USC, Washington. Ramp up. This is a great conference. It's interesting. Big Ten. Not so much with basketball. Only two teams in the preseason top 20. Um, it's going to be interesting to see. My pick is surprising. I have UCLA because there's no dominant team in my opinion. You got a lot of teams that are going to kind of we'll see what they become. So I'm going to take a flyer and say UCLA edges it out and wins the Big Ten in their first year. What do you got?
it's a good pick. Like you said, Big Ten is a little underwhelming. I have Indiana winning. I think Ballo, who I mentioned before previously, coming over is going to be a huge help. I mean, the guy's a walking double double. At least he was at Arizona, so I don't see that changing. And another player I think that's going to have a really good year is Miles Rice, transferred over from Washington State. The guy can score. He's a bucket. He would dominate Arizona Arizona would play Washington State. I believe actually we might have lost actually at Washington State now that I think about it. But Miles Rice, I mean, he was a killer. So if he can bring that killer mentality over to Indiana, it's just another guy, you know, to score the ball for Mike Woodson. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think Indiana's back.
Okay. Let's jump over to the Big 12, which is almost the exact opposite of the Big 10 feeling wise. Big 12 might be the best basketball conference. Period. This conference is loaded. Five teams in the top 20. No, sorry, five teams in the top 10 preseason. That shows you how difficult this conference is going to be. I'm going to just play it safe. I'm going to take Kansas, but five teams in the top 10. You could take any of them to win the conference.
I also have Kansas. I think there was a period of time where you could pretty much just write in Kansas winning the Big 12. We didn't see that last year. And we saw a very strange Kansas team. They lacked shooting and they lacked depth. And Bill Self went out and wanted to make sure that didn't happen again. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go play it safe. I'm not going to. I am playing it safe. I'm picking Kansas. Another guy that I want to highlight, DeJuan Harris. Another guy who I feel like has been in freaking college forever. I guess he's in his sixth year, maybe, because of the COVID year. But he looks like he's 12. I mean, he has a baby face, but he's a great, great, great college point guard. So, as much as Hunter Dickinson gets a lot of the headlines, DeJuan Harris is also someone to keep a note on for Kansas.
Good choice staying out of the early season debate there in your household as well. I guess you can have that when Arizona and Kansas play. Moving off to the
I know how to
Big
say
East.
safe.
Moving on to the Big East, also a very good conference. I'm going to just play it safe here as well. It's tough to bet against UConn. They've been so dominant the last couple of years. I'm going to go with UConn.
Yeah, ditto. I'm going UConn too. Danny Hurley's proving to be a pretty damn good coach. And Alex Caravan, he is returning, and I think this is his time to kind of, you know, be the guy for UConn. So they have a ton of other players that, I could have picked, but Alex Caravan, I think, is going to be the guy to watch.
Okay. Moving over to the SEC, four teams in the top 13. Alabama being the top pick to win it. Went to the Final Four last year. We've kind of talked about some of the returning players. I'm actually going to take Tennessee. They've been kind of knocking on the door these last few years. Had a very disappointing SEC tournament last year, getting bounced in the first round, if I remember right. And I don't think they did too much in the tournament. I'm trying to remember how they finished the tournament, it's slipping my mind. But I'll take Tennessee. They feel like they're that team that Rick Barnes has been knocking on the door and on the door, and I feel like this could be their year. So I'm going to take Tennessee.
So I'm going Alabama. I really like Nate Oates. I think he's a really good coach. I mentioned Grant Nelson in one of the games that we were highlighting for the first month, but I'm gonna mention Mark Sears. I know I jumped him to talk about Grant Nelson, but I'm gonna go back to Mark Sears. He's an unbelievable point guard, an unbelievable player. He kind of reminds me of Jalen Brunson to an extent. He's kind of a score first point guard, really good 3 point shooter as well, just like his teammate in Grant Nelson. But there's a reason that Mark Sears is up for a ton of the awards. So this Alabama team should be really fun offensively again, like they always seem to be under Nate Oates. So I got Alabama.
So this next category, we're just going to take everyone else. Any other team that we want to talk about? I mean, Gonzaga is going to be very good again, being sixth in the country. They're loaded with out of conference games, so always exciting to watch. The big question with Gonzaga is, will this be the year they win that national championship? I know you kind of talked about them a little bit. They're bringing back some good talent. They brought some good people in. It's the same thing as Mark Few get over the hump and finally win a title up there in Spokane. They're good every year, so it's tough not to highlight them for me as being probably the best other non-Big Five conference team. James, is there anyone that you want to lead the spotlight to?
Yeah, so I really wanted to go St. Mary's here. They're starting to look like a kind of the little brother to Gonzaga, and even last year I think they beat Gonzaga. Maybe I know for sure once, maybe even twice. But the Gales are really ascending in that conference, and it's not just a one-headed monster of Gonzaga. I think St. Mary's is right there too. The team I want to cover though is GCU, Grand Canyon. They had a really fun tournament run last year. They actually held their own with Alabama. Unfortunately, that's where the fun ended. But GCU has a player in Tyon Grant Foster. He was recruited to Kansas, transferred to DePaul. He actually died on the court and had to get resuscitated. He had now I'm blanking. I guess I don't really he had some kind of heart issue. So he's had a very interesting story, and I think they brought that up in the tournament last year. But he averaged 20 points per game last year. He's super tall for a guard slash kind of wing, but he has that NBA build, and he looks like someone who can play at the next level. So I think GCU is going to have a really good year again. I mean, all it takes, especially in college basketball, if you just have like one player who can dominate, as long as that guy can stay healthy, you can. Weird teams can sometimes just make really far runs or even have really good years just because of one player. So, yeah, let's see what GCU can do.
Yeah, that's a program that's just going up and up and up and up. And I don't think they've ever had an NBA, or they've never had an NBA, or sorry, they've never had a guy drafted into the NBA. So maybe he'll be the first. Also, some news came out just a couple days ago. GCU is going to the Mountain West in 26, I believe, as all these teams are floating around. It's amazing how fast that school has moved up. And it's become actually I don't want to say mainstream. It's been 1 year. I mean, it's been a few years that they've been actually very good now. They're building something there. Like the school that's getting hurt by it is ASU. They're taking the kids from ASU, not really from U of A, but they're taking the kids from ASU to go play at Grand Canyon, which is wild. Um,
And fun fact about Grand Canyon, their head coach is Baylor coach Scott Drew, his
yeah,
younger brother.
yeah,
So
fun things. Yeah. All right, so big picture now. James, who do you have in your final four? Who will be the last four standing? And I guess we'll just rattle it off. I'll have you do your final four national champion and championship game.
my final four, going a little homer here, but eventually it has to happen. I have Arizona, UConn, Duke, and Gonzaga. It's a little chalky in terms of like big name schools. We always typically see someone random. Like last year, we had a NC State. The year before, we had the I'm blanking on who it was. St. John's or St. Joe's or whatever, the Peacocks. But I'm going kind of chalky. So I have Arizona, UConn, Duke, and Gonzaga, and then my championship game is Arizona over Duke. I just think this Tommy Lloyd team is the deepest we've ever had. Um, I don't know. It's fun this early on to make predictions like this because the whole season can change based on injuries or how players, actually end up playing, not just what you think is going to happen based on what you're looking at on paper. But it'd be a fun matchup. It'd be a championship we haven't seen since 2001 when Duke beat Arizona. Um, but yeah, I have Arizona over Duke. And last thing I will say about Duke, another fun fact: Cooper Flag is from Maine. So think about that. The best player potentially in the country is coming from Maine. Well, that's weird.
A little weird. A little weird. Mine's pretty blue blood, pretty similar to yours. Duke, Kansas, UConn, Gonzaga, Duke, UConn national championship, and then I got Duke winning it all this year. It's been a long time coming for Duke fans, and I think with Cooper Flag, they get it done. That being said, the
And no
main
three-peat for UConn.
yeah, and the thing that you said with Maine is it's amazing how much this sport has grown over the last 20, 25 years, how international it is, where, guys come from all over the place. I mean, it's really fun to watch college basketball because you got guys coming from New Zealand and Australia, Europe, Canada has now brought down a lot of guys. It's cool to see how international not only the NBA has become, but college game in its own. The amount of guys are coming from all over the place, the different states you would never expect. Um, it's always fun to kind of see where these guys come from and what schools that we have no idea who they're going to be, who might make the run this year, who will be the St. Peter's of this year. Who will it be? We don't know.
St.
It's always
Peter's,
fun.
that was it.
Yeah, St. Peter's. Yeah. Who's going to be the team to make that run in March? And obviously, we'll do a show before that's going to be a big show. James, any other things before the season starts that you want to get off your chest?
Yeah, one thing. I don't know how good they're going to be, but keep an eye on Cal. Peja Stojakovic and Stefan Marbury's sons, I should say plural, are both at Cal. So if they're anything like their fathers,
Yeah.
maybe that'll be a cool team to watch. So
Yeah. The other thing to watch that will be
Golden
fun.
Bears.
Yeah, the other thing that will be fun to watch is how good will Arkansas be under John Calipari? Who knows? That could be a real big sleeper story. And Arkansas starting at 18, but how much is that because Calipari's there? Or, do they have the talent?
And what's Kentucky going to be without Calipari?
That's the other big question too. Was what is Kentucky going to be? And they're 23, I believe, to start. So a lot of fun storylines, and of course, like college football, we kind of mentioned it. So many teams playing in different conferences. So many conferences are going to look different, and some of these conference tournaments, who knows? There's a whole other outlaw or at large now available with the Pac-12 being gone. It's another spot available for some team in one of these conferences. That said, guys, enjoy college basketball, and college football is obviously still going on. But yeah, I think that's all we got.